What follow are 10 facts that are going to take up space in your memory that you will likely never regurgitate again to anyone. Enjoy! It's actually possible to drop the temperature of water below 32 degrees Fahrenheit without it freezing. This is known as supercooling, and you can do it at home if you have a freezer and some water that's relatively free of impurities. The reason this can happen with very pure water is because an ice crystal can't grow unless it has a place to start. And this place, called a nucleation site, is what seeds the formation of the crystal. On the molecular level, ice has a very crystalline lattice-type structure, and the reason for this is due to the electrically lopsided nature of the H2O molecule. One side of it is a little more positively charged and the other side is a little more negatively charged. Now, if you wanted to try to supercool water at your house, you could, but if you use the water from the faucet in your kitchen, for instance, it's going to likely have impurities in it that'll act as nucleation sites, which will prevent the water from remaining in its liquid state once freezing temperatures have been reached. But if you are able to get your hands on some pretty pure water and bring it home, stick it in your freezer and drop its temperature below its freezing point, you may be able to witness something pretty cool. Now, once you have the water's temperature below its freezing point, all you gotta do is get a few of the molecules to line up in that lattice-type structure forming the seed. Once that happens, the water molecules around it will just start to fall into place in a chain reaction that will freeze the rest of the water in a matter of seconds. But Cody, how do I get the seed to stop? I'll tell you, there are two ways. So what you do is very carefully remove it from the freezer and introduce an impurity into the water, like a speck of dust. That'll work. But if the bottle's still sealed, like right after you bought it, then the next option is also pretty simple. Just bang it on the countertop, bang it on the countertop, bang it on the countertop. Now the reason that'll work is because banging it down on the counter, will likely line up a few molecules just by accident into that lattice type structure forming the seed, and then ultimately the ice crystal. If you want to see this in action, check out Veritasium's video by clicking right here. It's well worth it. One of the many bizarre things that particle physicists have learned since the introduction of quantum mechanics is that fundamental particles have no volume. Fundamental particles are those very small things that make up all the atoms and everything we see around us, like protons, neutrons, electrons, and so forth and so on. So if volume is the amount of space that an object or shape occupies, then saying that a particle has no volume means that the particle occupies no space. And that's super strange, because I'm made of particles, volumeless particles apparently, and I quite clearly take up space. Weird. Now let's imagine for a moment that you're an apple tree. I know, just stay with me. And you're faced with the issue of reproduction. Now, you need to produce seeds and somehow scatter those seeds so that more apple trees will grow wherever those seeds end up. So the solution you come up with is that you're going to wrap your seed in a sweet fruit so that animals want to eat it. And when that animal goes to see a man about a horse and does a number doozy, the seed gets dropped, along with a little natural fertilizer, and a new apple tree grows. Ta-da! Problem solved. But what if you were an avocado tree, and the animals you relied on to eat that fruit and the big old seed inside went extinct? This is exactly what happened about 10,000 years ago. Avocado trees have been growing in Mexico and Central America for a long time now, but for the past 10,000 years or so, there haven't been any animals in that area large enough to swallow one of those big seeds. So if you're an avocado tree with no way to disperse your seeds any longer, how do you prevent your species from going extinct? The answer is, you rely on that local population of intelligent monkeys who recently discovered agriculture. Those monkeys are known today as humans. And lucky for that particular kind of tree that people like the taste of avocados. We've been cultivating them ever since. We've been teaching primates how to use sign language for a long time now. There's even a gorilla named Coco who's able to understand over 1,000 signs in gorilla sign language. But even though these primates answer questions all the time, there is something that's still kind of odd. None of them have ever actually asked a question for themselves. To some researchers, this indicates that these animals don't have what's known as a theory of mind, which basically means that these primates don't understand that other creatures have beliefs, intentions, and perspectives that differ from their own. We've all grown up knowing that humans breathe oxygen, and that it's, like, important for survival or whatever. But you may be surprised to know that the Earth's atmosphere is only about 20% oxygen. The other 80% is nitrogen. The The reason you can mix cream into your coffee but can't unmix it is described by the second law of thermodynamics. The total entropy of a closed system always increases toward the future. Next! Bronze was discovered around 3500 BC and is an alloy metal composed of about 90% copper and 10% tin. The copper allows it to be easily molded and shaped, while the tin makes it more harderer and hold an edge more betterer, which was pretty revolutionary back in the day when they were making swords and other weapons during the Bronze Age. You got it. It's common knowledge that when you sweat, you stink. But that familiar smell of body odor doesn't actually come from the sweat itself, but rather the smell comes from your butt. Your butt. Nah, the smell is actually produced by bacteria on your skin that consume the sweat secretions that are released from your sweat glands. The so-called apocrine glands release an oily liquid that contains proteins and fatty acids. The bacteria then consume this stuff for energy, and as a byproduct, they release the gases that we know as body odor. Matter of fact, different bacteria release different gases, so some people will smell worse, or better, or just different. The DNA molecule contains the genetic code required for the creation and function of every living organism. For instance, the nucleus of every cell in a human body contains a copy of that person's DNA. For instance, the nucleus of every cell in the human body contains a copy of that person's DNA. And how long is a strand of DNA? About this long. No, it's about 6 feet long. 6 feet. 6 feet. That's about as long as I am tall, in every single cell of your body. About 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe had cooled enough to allow the formation of atoms. Of these atoms, about 75% were hydrogen. All of the hydrogen that would ever exist in the universe was created at this time. Now let's bring it back to water one more time. In addition to oxygen, the H2O molecule contains 2 atoms of hydrogen. Those 2 atoms are among the oldest things in the history of time itself. So with every drink of water, you consume hydrogen atoms that have been in existence since around the time of the Big Bang. Talk about ancient. So there you have it, 10 things that you may or may not have known before today. Feel free to discuss with your friends, or just file them away in your brain under the section for things you'll never need to know again. Today I wanted to demonstrate a sciencey type effect that I find pretty cool, which is based on the concept. Apparently there's a few different kinds of UV light, so let's break it down. Nobody says break it down anymore.